So,
Go.
oh, hello.
Hello. Hello.
Hello. Welcome to the final
Ramble.
Ramble.
Final Ramble.
Of Art 160 Summer 2014. And we're here to talk about your images, your final project. And we are going to begin our ramble. Do you have anything you want to say?
I was just going to say we got some good suites of final gallery images, and what we've done is select a few to talk about. So thanks for participating, and here we go.
Yeah, and our first set of images is
Victoria
Rumpf, who did a series on bricks.
Right.
And bricks is sort of a foundational material, building material.
Right. There's a couple of interesting photos here. I think point of view came into play. I think especially contrasting this one here with that one. So we've got this sort of leading upward, and
to this one,
no, actually the street one.
This
one leading outward. Like those are kind of an interesting couple. You get the sense of her idea, I think, was foundation, and I would like to see that develop into foundation and what? Going somewhere, staying here. What does that mean to be foundational? And these two images sort of suggest that you start somewhere and you go somewhere else. So I thought that was something that was worth discussing.
Yeah, I think when you're talking about something as like bricks and as a foundation, it's very easy to relate to other things as well, as far as how, say, humans are built, or how you personally are, what is your personal foundation, and how they relate to something inner as well as something outer.
Yeah, and I think the challenge in taking something as simple or as straightforward as, bricks or foundation is to really elevate it somehow in how you shoot. How can you make that become more sophisticated, more evocative? What can I do with that? And I think you sort of have done it with the images, but I want more. I do want more.
Yeah, the interesting part of this image is the bricks are wet. That adds a nice texture to the thing. Also nice texture in this. I think all the shots were on the campus here at Agnes Scott, but the colors of the brick here in the sunlight and contrasted with the sky and the shapes that are in the...
Right. I think this one is clearly selected. We selected this because of its formal aspects. It's interesting, right? The color, I think, is really important in this. And then the reflection of the organic with that structural brick, that starts to say something sort of interesting. And then your linear aspects sort of pull that thing together, what's going on with the leading in the window as well as the molding around the brick. So that's a nice shot.
The uniformity of the bricks against the less uniform shapes of the window.
Right.
Let's see here. Again, the shooting straight up and the reflection off the bricks. I like the way it works out.
Yeah, I want more from this guy. It feels like it's suggesting something, and I really want to see that developed.
Okay, so now we're going to go to Carlisa.
Yeah.
Her theme was beauty.
Yeah, Carlisa had an interesting, I think a theme that really had a lot of potential to it, which is the idea of, what was it, natural and unnatural, like makeup and how we construct ourselves, and
the idea of beauty and
I
think she was relating it to Sheila Pretty Bright. Yeah, and she puts on our blog, put a couple images that Sheila did of the Barbie dolls,
right?
How that the false interacted with the real.
Right.
And now I like this image because of that stark, you can't see what I'm pointing to. Yeah, I'll move with the cursor. Yeah, it's right in here. Oh, I'm not, yeah.
Ow. You've got an X.
Yeah, let me X that
Didn't know you could do that.
Yeah,
that's pretty interesting.
That's pretty nice. So we can move up
you get
here.
a chin.
Yeah, you learn something every day in Photoshop.
Cool.
Yeah, so what contrast is this stark, reflective shape of whatever it is down below is very linear, with Carlisa up above.
Yeah.
So works.
Now,
nice.
This is a beautiful portrait, and I'm not sure why the great big white thing on the lower half of it, but it works just really beautifully. It has a relationship to the white wall behind you, and then that black line that leads through it, and the fact that half of the shot is nothing, actually really creates a contrast and a focal point on the figure. The fact that she's off center, it's really a dynamic. It's very strong image.
I'm going to move to this one, which we both were kind of intrigued by. And what intrigued me were the lips in the lower right corner. And to me, that made the image more interesting. Another aspect of interest is the shallow depth of field, meaning the cheeks are the only thing in focus, really, or the cheek. The lips not very far away, but yet they're out of focus. I don't know whether you did that in Photoshop or whether you did it in the image, but that works real well to highlight the different aspects. The back part of the image going out of focus, the hair and.
Yeah, and what I want to say about this image is that it's very weird. I mean in a good way. I know what this is. I'm very familiar. Obviously, faces are the thing that we are most familiar with, but it's weird. Why is it pink? Why is it pink like that? And why is she smiling like that? It's just this bizarro, almost clown-like,
that's what I was thinking.
Made
Joker-esque.
up, Joker-esque, but yet weird. I mean, disturbing. It's a little bit disturbing. That's a place where I think you start to message your meaning. If you're talking about natural and unnatural makeup, well, I get that from this. I get that from how you composed it, what you've made clear, what you've made blurry, how everything about that, the subject matter. It's weird. It's a little bit scary. So that's a nice evocative image. I think this one really makes your point that you talked about, Carlisa, in your video, where you're saying, what are the impositions? I think basically this is what you were saying: impositions of beauty from our culture. All these different colors that we sort of color. Color and shade are, and color, shade, and I would say tint are loaded in our culture.
And I like the markings. They look like marks.
Yeah.
You would make just simple strokes. And I guess the idea behind it is just getting what the various tones are, what type works best with your skin, etc. But I also like what's out of focus here in the image as well.
Yeah, that's interesting because it actually... go ahead.
And the texture of that second mark from the left.
It's interesting because it actually works really well graphically. Graphically, this draws us in. This line, rhythm, pattern pulls us in. The color, kind of sumptuous. And then we get to the meaning because we think, oh, those are skin tones. Oh, that's on skin. But that's a secondary meaning. So it really, again, it works with the layers of understanding. Good.
And I think this one, one thing I want to point out is out of the 4 images we picked of Carlisa's, 3 of them are very close in, and we like that aspect. The first one, much more different than the rest, interesting in its own right, but the other 3 were all up very close. And
Good point.
And this one works as well. I think there's something in the foreground that kind of frames Carlisa, and in the bottom left of the frame as well. That's sort of this opaque material or light or something.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about framing too, and I don't think we talked about it enough in the class, but framing obviously is huge. How do you frame within a frame? The picture itself is a frame, but to create devices within that kind of further your subject can be is a good element, is a good device. And look how blurry this stuff is, and blue. I don't even know what that is, some kind of strange mist. I think this image, just like that other one with the blush, does the same thing. It's weird. We understand it, but what's going on with her eyes? It feels a little bit like torture, and not like happy pretty girl. It feels like we don't know what's going on. And I think when you can ride that kind of line between, I think what you're doing is creating meaning by saying, yeah, this is scary, and yeah, this is beauty. Both these things are true at the same time. Then I can pick up on that and think, rather than you're telling me something, you're asking me something, you're pulling something out of me, and I think that's really strong.
Yeah, and I think that if you explored this further, I mean, using what Nell was talking about the strange aspects of this, would really fit in well and to expand the theme.
Yeah.
All right. So now we're going to move to Ms. Hernandez.
So Anna was working on Miami, as she's been doing all semester, but she's honed in here to talk about Miami as a city of contrasts. So she's working with contrast, both thematically, conceptually, and formally. And here the contrast is with color and also with shape.
A lot with shape.
With light, with darkness and light.
And there's a lot of different unusual things going on in there. The green cast of the light. the shapes, the buildings as they converge on one another, and then its contrast with the sky.
Yeah, there's a couple of interesting things that are a little bit subtle. One is that, yeah, I want to dismiss this as a traffic light, but it's super interesting because it's where the sun would be setting. So it's sort of the sense of the
Good
contrast of geometric or man-made against, against natural, against nature. But also it's in the center of the picture, so it's the most important thing. And so it's a light. It's the shape of the sun, but it's a traffic light, and it's actually very small, although it could be very large, blah, blah, blah. I also like the way this cloud continues onto the line of the shape of the cloud, continues onto the line that is the shape of the trees against the building. I think
point.
that might be something to enhance in maybe in Photoshop, because Anna said she did a lot of sort of working in Photoshop to enhance the images. I think that could grow a little bit, but it's nice. It works. Yeah.
Okay, so I think this is similar to other couple of shots that Anna showed in the past, like off her deck.
Yeah.
With lines and shapes of things, and I really like the curve of this orange building in the top left.
Yeah.
And then the more linear aspects and the shapes of the palms.
Yeah. Yeah, this just feels like a classic formal shot. I mean, everything feels very secure. I think this shot, it's like something you might see on stock images, A little bit, it's an interesting point of view. You get a lot of action. I mean, the curve of this building is really important. The negative space right here that comes out into the shapes of these guys is really important. Kind of obeys the thirds, the law of thirds.
Yeah, and it's Miami.
It is Miami.
You look at that, you would think Miami, the building, the contrast between the buildings and the palms and the shapes.
That's a really good point. This really says Miami, and also the color.
And the color, the blues.
The color contrast, the palms, and then the skyscrapers, and the water. You sort of have it all, don't you?
Yeah. I'm going to guess this was in Miami.
I think that's Miami. Yes, Miami.
Okay, unusual photograph here. Really, the colors are very obviously photoshopped in some fashion. And what caught my attention was that in the top left, it's sort of a black and white sky, but on the right side, it's still got a little color left into it. There's sort of a kind of a muted tones for Miami in here. This could I think the actual photograph itself, the original, probably brighter. So this gives I think a little more somber tone to Miami.
And what I like about this photo, taken really on its own, is that there's a strangeness to it. I want to look at it and say, "Oh, it's just a skyline," and dismiss it and move on. But I can't quite, because there's just some creepitude.
Yeah, you're right. There is a little creepitude.
I think what happens here is really interesting. It's subtle. It's black and white here with dark clouds on a light background, and then we move over here, and it becomes sort of white gray, a blue gray with the light clouds on a dark background. That sort of that transformation that happens within the sky, both in terms of color and contrast, is really interesting.
Yeah, and to me, the buildings. Talking about this, you're speaking of it as strange. Maybe look at the buildings as sort of strange too. There's sort of a dingy quality to them in this one, and it could be interpreted like there is this dark side of Miami that's not all bright and fun. There is the dingy underbelly. Is there a dingy underbelly in Miami? Probably.
Anna, we'd like to hear about it.
Yeah, let's hear about it.
Wait. The other thing I want to say is that the texture, this is framed as well. There's like the third of this the sky, a third of this is the building, and a third of this is the trees. That this texture across the bottom really kind of matches this texture here and frames those buildings. And then the other thing I want to say is I don't have a sense of time here. This could be 1950 or 1920. It kind of looks like those retouched photographs.
Yeah, I like your idea too of the fact there's the sky, the buildings are framed by these two areas of organic material. It's like this steel cement grew out of this organic thing.
Yes, you start to get to the concept that again that Anna was working with originally, I think, which was nature versus man-made, and she broadened it into contrast. So I think that could hammer on that a little bit. All right,
we'll hammer on the way here.
I just think the color in this is fabulous.
Yeah, nice color. The green, blue, and the line just going straight across, but somehow mediated by the flares of lights that go off the building.
And this one actually kind of has some meaning to it too, because it's Bienvenidos a la Pequeña Habana, which I guess is Welcome to Little Havana, right? Which is very Miami.
Yeah, very Miami. Plus with the dominoes. I guess those are dominoes, right?
I guess they're dominoes. Yeah, and I love the big blue background, and that picks up. You know what this kind of does? What that last photograph does, because the blue is sky. I'm assuming that this is a billboard at night. So you have this big blue patch of sky, and then you got the blue on the billboard. So you get the man-made again with the referencing the natural.
The natural.
The natural.
Okay, so let's see. Do we have? We have one more.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we were. I'll let Nell.
Yeah.
Talk about this
I think this is like sort of a classic foodie shot. This is like, to me, if you were we've seen a lot of these kinds of shots, because whenever we go out to dinner now, we're like, oh, I'm going to post it on Facebook. It's so awesome. Look what I'm eating. Everybody envy me, right?
And I do envy this dish.
I do.
It looks very delicious.
And sushi looks really delicious. But I do think it's well set up. I think you've got a nice composition here. I like the fact that we can see the water beyond. And I can use the squirt thing.
Yeah. So.
And then this right here, when you zero in on the the very quaint vase, we get a self-portrait.
There's Anna.
There's Anna. Hey, Anna.
Right in front of the sushi there.
Yeah. And I think that's just a cool detail. Because, can you undo it?
Mm-hmm. Right.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, because that surface itself is a little is different than everything else.
And then we get a nice rhythmic. We get that as a repeated here, and then we get another thing. Here's this, everything. And it's kind of like we would expect everything, and then we get to have Anna besides that. That's just kind of that was a nice little surprise.
Did you notice you were in there, Anna?
You don't have to answer.
You don't have to answer. Yeah. Okay. So now we're going to move to Maggie.
Maggie,
whose theme was the beach.
Yeah.
She went to the beach on vacation and decided to take pictures of the beach.
Yeah, and Maggie, I appreciated Maggie's kind of struggle with what her theme was going to be.
Mm-hmm. That's right, yeah.
Yeah, she didn't know what to do. She was thinking she should finish early, and I can't remember now what exactly the struggle was. It was something you were trying to say.
Well, she was trying to maybe do her theme before she went to vacation, because she might have trouble on vacation working with the theme. Which is, it's true. I'm going on vacation, you're relaxed.
You don't want to work on stupid
you don't want to work, yeah. You want to just get to your vacation.
But I thought Maggie came out with some really interesting shots, and I was impressed with how exploratory she was. Like, she was really inventive with what she was doing. Remember, she was working with text. I don't think we included any text.
I don't think we included one of the text ones.
But I appreciated your your thinking to go into text, your use of text, and then you're backing off from it. So not like saying, this is the answer, I'm going to do that, with every one of them. And I think, therefore, your text pieces worked. Also, you had some inventive things within that, like doing the one with the images within the text, none of which we included. So if you guys want to see that, you have to go to Maggie's site.
And we would encourage you to go to everybody's site and look through everybody's images and what they wrote about them and their videos. This one too. I mean, Maggie used a waterproof camera. Thank goodness, or else her camera's destroyed now. But,
yeah, because you looked at this. Calvin looked at this and said, "God, I hope she was really taking a risk there to take her camera like that." And then later we read that she borrowed her brother's camera.
Yeah, waterproof Fuji camera.
Yeah.
But this image here in the foreground, the water is absolutely beautiful, and it's just. And I like the fact that it's off kilter.
Yeah.
That adds a real nice element to it, and the two figures that are blurry and black in the image. And a nice line going across her horizon.
I think this is a really kind of exciting image. I think that, the fact that it does this diagonal and goes up gives it all kinds of action, but then there's action again in here.
Yeah, that's great.
This is enhanced as well, right? It's like taken and enhanced. I don't know. Maybe.
I don't know, unless it's the splash of the water. Maybe Maggie can let us know what effect.
And it doesn't matter, which is, I think, also interesting, because look at all this texture in here, really fabulous. And then texture, the lines do this, this goes all which way, these go up. This goes absolutely definitely across. They're giving us kind of this settled definition between what's below and what's above. But then you get the same action here that you have here, both in terms of, like line direction of the chippy choppy.
Yeah. You gotta like anything that's chippy choppy.
And then I love the figures because they're so ill-defined. That they're just these little dark things that are there that just blend in. So it's not. Even though it's about the figures, it's not about the figures at all. It's really about the environment. In fact, it's unsettled, right? I mean, there's no real true horizontal or ground, so everything about it feels.
Yeah, you don't know the relationship of the figures in there. One person seems to be looking to the right. This indefinable thing.
Yeah, could be a seal.
Yeah, it could be a seal. Could be a
Darth
buoy,
Vader.
or Darth Vader.
Yeah. Could be Yeah, it's nice. Nice color. And this actually does the same thing.
It does the same thing, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's different than the other. It's
Yeah.
much more defined and much sharper,
Oh, it's
much
beautiful.
clearer. But it's just wonderful. Yeah, the colors of the water there,
You need
the
to look
sky.
at
It
Catherine
just
Opie. We need to.
almost looks like a painting
Yeah.
in its richness of tones there.
Yeah, I want to say, I think this is gorgeous. I think that it's got so much going on. You know what's going on, but you don't know what's going on. It's got all kinds of stories. It's really about the water, but the figures being there sort of point to it being about the water, but add enough relatability that I'm in there with them. Again, the horizon line here is really fabulous. The same thing that's happening with the water is happening with the clouds, just like in the last. I'd love to see a series of these. You know, I'd love to see 10 of just where you take that idea and kind of
go with it. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And yeah, the water in the foreground, beautiful. I don't know if you played with the colors or not. I mean, it's so green here, and then yet blue, purple in this area here. So
it's a really beautiful photograph.
And that person in the surf right there.
And the same thing with the figures. You can define them, but you can't define them. And it sort of they could be anybody, which is really nice. They're not portraits. They're me. I mean, that's how I relate to it. That's how I get in the water with you.
And that kind of comes us to the next one here. Comes us.
It comes us right here.
It brings us to the next image. We'll come to the rest later, but yeah, and this one, great. I love the fact that nothing's in focus in this one here. The water is swirling, the figure, I mean, the blurs, there's this swirl quality to this thing.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, those ones that we picked out are all blurry in some places. You know, you have like little places of rest, and
there are people in it, but they're not definable. They're not central to the photograph. I mean, there's a very famous. I mean, I don't know why I just thought of this, but this reminds me of a famous Robert Capa picture of the invasion of Normandy, where the figures, because he was in danger as well. It was a very blurry, swirly water, and created a very exciting, scary sort of image. Fear was part of that, and you could certainly incorporate that into this one.
Yeah, and I really appreciate that these are beach scenes, you know, that you were going to do the beach, which could be an incredibly hokey, cheesy, boring topic, but I haven't, but you didn't do that. You got somewhere else with it, and they're very moody, you know.
They are very moody, and I like that. I think we talked about it before, about the beach being a place of contrast as well. It's a place of vacation, etc., but the ocean can be also very dangerous, and you could, you know, go back to some of these others and see there's a little element of, you know, the water kind of absorbing or taking over the human figures.
Yeah, there's a respect for nature in these, that both in terms of how you formally shoot them, but they're gorgeous, and how you compose them. I was just going to say, I want to just bring up the danger thing because Maggie tells a story in her narrative about how she got pulled out to sea right before she posted these things. So Colin's right. Yeah. Water dangerous, water good. Yeah, and I like that you can hold both things in this. In these
Too bad you didn't have a camera when you were being pulled out to sea.
Yeah.
Hopefully it would have floated if.
Let's not even think about that, Colin.
Let's go now to Laura. Let's see.
Can we make it bigger? Or is
it in Laura's picture, she had trouble with focus, and so she kept her images small so that wouldn't be as highlighted. I think in retrospect, it'd been better just not to worry about that at all. Just go ahead and make them bigger. It's kind of hard for us to see here, but her topic is man's best friend, and so she.
I think she was taking the theme portrait of a friend, and then she took that to her dog, which is man's best friend, and then she kind of twisted it. Similar, actually, to what Maggie did, I think. Mm-hmm. So,
let's see. I'm going to see if I can make this bigger while you're chatting there.
All right. Well, I'm chatting. Well, let me continue to chat. What I want to talk about in terms of Laura's work is that she's abstracted things to the point of true abstraction. I can't actually read what these images are. I don't know, and so. What's really nice is that I'm super familiar with them, right? Because these are parts of dogs, but there'll be little aspects of what might be a nose, or what might, let's do it that way, I think. What might be a nose, or what might be a piece of skin, or an ear flap, that she's abstracted to the point of I have no idea what it is. And part of the abstraction is taking it into black and white. Black and white will always make a work look more about its formal aspects. Let's go on to the next one. And like the creepy. This also reminds me of Carlisa's because there's sort of a creepy strangeness to it. I mean, this feels like a tarantula or something. Like there's just, the fact that I can't see everything. You're just giving me a piece of it. It's like the thing that's creeping around the corner and it's going to get me.
Yeah, and you get the feeling that it's creeping on skin. I think Laura may have had the dog's claws on her arm or something, but there's something that adds the creep element to that.
Right, and so here's something where the formal elements, right, you're taking sort of this smooth texture next to this sharper, furrier texture, and you're juxtaposing those two things, and that's all you've got going, really adds to the meaning and transforms it and gets me, that you got me.
The dog's tail, I would assume, off this one right here, and I love the fact that it's against a black background. This one's bigger than the rest, so I guess we kind of threw caution to the wind on this one and went ahead and went with it. But I don't know if there's an accident or not, but you can tell in the tail that there's this what do we call that stuff?
Pixelation.
Pixelation going on,
and
let's make that bigger right there. So, and that may have been because Laura was blowing it up in Photoshop to make it a little bit larger.
Laura, it actually works. It's cool. But the pixelation in that is just fine. And, we don't know that this is a tail. It could be a paintbrush. It's something furry. It could be the end of a wing, maybe, sort of. We don't know what it is, right? That's how abstract works. But what's going for this guy is the contrast, the big thing of black, the lovely tendrils of the edges where the edges of that white morph into the black.
The way it's framed, it's in the lower left part. It's not centered or anything.
It's both calming and strange.
Strange. A strange calming, we'll call this one.
A strange calming, yes. Very nice. Versus this one.
Versus this one, which is not as calming.
Not calm.
As a matter of fact, I want to run right now. Let's just go. We'll see if we can, So we probably can figure out that this is canine teeth of some kind or another, right? Any other animals have this kind of teeth?
Oh, who knows? It could be bear.
Could be bear, yeah.
It's an animal, right? And its teeth.
And they're bared.
But again, what you're doing with formal is high contrast, right? You're doing black and white. You're giving us those strong diagonals that just give us action. The negative space that's going on with the, in between the teeth. Like there's just all kind of tension here. The abstract form of this, coupled with its subject matter, make it creepy.
And we like
evocative, interesting. Yeah, really, I think it really works. Same thing here. It's like I know what that is, but I don't know what it is. Is that looking through a puddle? Is it a dog's underbelly? Which is, I know that through context. But if I saw this alone, I wouldn't know what that was necessarily. And yet, I know that it's of something. I have a familiarity with it. There's something about it that feels really visceral.
And I think these would have been too. I really wish, Laura, you would take these and show us the bigger images of these, because they would really enhance that effect and the strangest effect. The teeth and the tail and the claws on the skin, I think, deserve to be larger and seen in a bigger format.
It's a super series.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to start. This is the last, Melissa Barnes. And she went to, I think she took pictures in Chicago and Atlanta, and she used more than one kind of camera. She was using one of the what do you call that? The 2 1/4 square reflex camera or something like that. So anyhow, this one I think is her digital camera. But her theme was wait and acknowledge. And you should definitely see her. We're going to post her video. She did a great video explaining her photographs and her theme, and it works really well.
Right, so Melissa, instead of writing it all, told a story. So she sort of has a video kind of statement reflection about the project. It's just beautiful. It is long, 15 minutes, 16 minutes,
17.
But 17 minutes. But it's interesting, and it works because she's a storyteller. So
and she told it very well, and she described in detail her process that she was going through when she was taking the images and aspects of the images that are worth seeing. And,
One of the things I really appreciate about Melissa's work is where she started and where
Mhm.
she ended up. And you guys might remember that she's going to do her project down in Little Five, and did that. Went down and worked that as much as she could, and
Photograph
learned from that, and
strangers.
figured out what she wanted to do, and came forward with her final project. I think it was a really beautiful, I don't know, transition from one thing to
Mhm.
another. I saw a lot of growth in what she did, and a lot of courage.
This is her reflex camera. I'm not even sure the name of that's the correct name of the camera, but it was an old camera, and it was a Brownie camera, and you look down through it. Am I looking? You see me? I'm looking down.
Like Vivian Myers.
Yeah, like Vivian Myers' camera. Thanks. Yeah.
And in fact, I think Vivian Myers was her inspiration for that.
Yeah, I think that was the initial inspiration, and had her, especially with the street photography,
Yeah.
going out into Little Five, etc.
Yeah, and so Melissa did a lot with actually using film and delving into photography as a medium, which I appreciated, and she got some interesting shots from that. And you can tell they've got a really different mood to it. You can see the edges of the film strip.
Yeah, all around
and,
here.
and again, if she in her video, she will she goes through the images and talks about them, and it's worth listening to.
Yeah, actually, I hesitate to even talk about them here
I know,
because she did such a wonderful job
Yeah,
on it.
so
That's
we're
what
not
seeing.
we're gonna be hesitant.
One of her Little 5 Points images of an artist at Little 5 Points, and really love the way that this was taken, that his head is lowered. I think it's much more interesting than if he was looking straight ahead at the camera, and the fact that he's holding these two off-kilter images in his hands up against the black background. It's very beautiful. And let's see here.
Yeah, so this is in Chicago, and I think Melissa talks about it in terms of the view. I think what's really interesting about this is that she includes this lower left-hand, what a third of the photograph is the inside of the train. And, I don't think that's a mistake, because you get to see the inside of the train, you get to see the train itself. Look how these lines parallel these lines, but this makes this nice rhythmic transition from inside to outside.
Similar in tone and texture
shot.
to the actual train tracks itself.
Yeah.
And as she pointed out in her video, this is the only photograph she had that didn't have any people in it. Actually, there's one person I see way
There's
off.
all kinds of people.
Yeah,
in
like
it.
way down there somewhere. Yeah, let's do.
Yeah, let's see.
Let's look around.
Wait, there's a guy washing the windows.
No, there's one.
Yeah,
there's a
one.
guy right
One.
there. There's
Yeah,
a guy
at
walking
least
there.
one.
Yeah.
I think
I think he's on a bike. Look at that.
Okay.
Wow, this is cool. But that's not why we're here to look at.
Oh, we can just,
Well, we are here to look at the
yeah, we are
images.
here. That's exactly what we're here for. But yeah, well, that was an inspection.
And I think this is the image that Melissa I think might have been one of her favorite images.
I think this
in
was
there.
her favorite. She's not gonna lie.
And she's not going to lie. It's a beautiful image, and it's got a lot going for it in terms of contrast and lines and shapes.
And framing.
And framing. And she talked about it in terms of rule of the thirds,
Uh-huh.
which I think we mentioned in some
ramble somewhere.
Some ramble somewhere. And you should go look that up.
Yep.
But that shape in the front and the way it frames the woman in the background waiting. Again, see Melissa's video, because she talks really in depth about waiting and acknowledgement. People are waiting to be acknowledged, and that was very interesting thematically.
And Melissa, I wanted to point out, I'm going to say this now, I might remember to write it into your comments as well, but there is, in the 70s, there was a movie called Woman House, which was it was actually the beginning of the feminist art movement. We have it in our library, and you can check it out, but there's an entire poem by Faith Wilding called Waiting, and it is sort of performed in this movie. It is it has stayed with me forever. It's really beautiful, and you should go check it out. Okay, you might be able to find it online.
All right, so I think that's the end of the ramble.
I think that's the end of our ramble and the end of our class.
End of the class. So
we're going to
thanks,
send
class.
you all. Yeah, we'll send you all your final evaluations. We're working on that right now. Thanks for participating.
And we'll see you soon.
See you next time.